Everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of basic preflop strategy for Pot Limit Omaha. In the first episode, we looked specifically into raised first in strategy from early position, and we focused ourselves on low stakes / high rake environments. We also gave an overview of different preflop positions and different stake levels. Now in episode 2 today, we're going to focus also on one situation, which will be cold calling in middle position versus an early position raise. But first, let's give all of you guys an overview from a few different angles. If we look at cold calling by different stakes, we can see that if we compare PLO 50 versus PLO 500 and PLO 5000, we can see that, for example, middle position facing an early position raise, the cold call frequency for the player in middle position is going up from 3.7% playing low stakes to 5.5% playing mid stakes at PLO 500 and then 7.6% at high stakes PLO 5000. But that's all good to know, but what about different positions? Because one position doesn't really tell us much, one situation. Let's compare button versus cutoff. At PLO 50, we can cold call around 9.6% of the hands in our range. We can cold call 13.6% of all hands at PLO 500 versus a cutoff RFI sitting on the button. And at PLO 5000, we can call the most, which is 18.2%. Now at big blind versus small blind decision, so ranges become much wider. The small blind is raising quite a bit of hands here, and in the big blind, we are closing the action. There's no one behind us that will enter the pot by either calling or maybe even squeezing, and therefore we can call a lot of our range. At low stakes, PLO 50, 57.7% of the hands are fine enough to enter the pot with by cold calling. At PLO 500, 65%, and at high stakes, PLO 5000, 75.2%. You can see these differences, and this overview gives you basically one conclusion, which is the more rake you pay, the tighter you should cold call. At low stakes, where the rake is relatively higher, we should cold call much tighter than at higher stakes, where the rake is relatively much lower. So when you are sitting pre-flop and you are acting in a passive action, or you are deciding to make a passive action, in other words, you're not raising or 3-betting or 4-betting where you have fold equity pre-flop and you can win the pot without seeing a flop, you generally should play a tight strategy at low stakes. And at mid and high stakes, you can come into the pot wider and cold call more. Okay, what you see here is a cold call overview, middle position versus early position for PLO 50, so low stakes in this situation. And I highlighted the cold call frequencies here. You can see in the yellow bars are the cold call ranges for different buckets or different groups of hands we can have. Aces, kings, queens, all the way down to single suited and rainbow rundowns without an ace. The gray bars, we're not focusing on those, but the dark bars here are the fold frequencies and the light gray bars are the 3-bet ranges. But as you can see here, the cold call frequency are in yellow. So for example, aces, we're basically never cold calling, but kings 27% of the time at low stakes. Queens 13%, jack and tens 9%. Double suited rundowns that have an ace 17%, but without an ace only 4%. Pause the video if you want to look deeper into it. For now, we're going to move on, and I give you guys a few different examples of a few of these buckets. Looking at kings, MP versus early position, remember that it's about cold calling, specifically versus a tight range. Also sitting in middle position, we are cold calling 27% of our kings. Kings that could enter the pot here by cold calling are double suited or double paired kings to start out with. So king, king, deuce, deuce. That are single suited, most of them also double suited, are fine enough to come in for the cold call here. Double suited kings, like king, king, 6-4 is a fine hand to enter the pot here. Like most double suited kings are still good enough to enter the pot here by cold calling. And when it comes to kings that also do have an ace, we specifically focus on kings that have the nut suit basically. So ace, king, king, 5 with the nut suit is a fine hand to call because we benefit from pulling in other players behind us against which we can have a dominating suit. And therefore, we want to have that nut suit and not, for example, the king high suit. So the bottom hand, the same one with the king high suit, would be a much better candidate to go in for the 3-bet. Okay, this is for kings. So remember, we are selective. 27% of the kings we are calling. When it comes to single-suited kings, they are not listed here specifically without the ace or without being double paired, but we are extremely selective there. We need strong connectivity, high cards in order to justify cold calling. Okay, let's look into queens. Queens, we're cold calling. Very similar to kings with the ace. If we have the nut suit here with queens, we benefit a lot from pulling in other players with lower pairs, for example, or worse suits. So a hand like ace, queen, queen, jack is a great candidate to come in for the call. It's also not a hand that wants to 3-bet and then face a 4-bet and having to fold. This hand has enough EV calling, and therefore we really want to get into the pot by cold calling here. Double suited queens, we are more selective than with kings because we have a weaker pair. So we need better side cards, better connectivity. So queen, king, 5-4 is sort of the bottom of our cold calling range. And besides this hand, we are looking for higher side cards. With single-suited queens, we need to be extremely selective. So queen, king, 10-9, single-suited is fine enough to enter the pot by cold calling, but anything weaker, really, you shouldn't play in this position. And the reason is people behind you can enter the pot. They can come in with kings, so you're dominated. You will end up in a lot of multi-way pots at low stakes, which isn't great. You're going to guarantee pay the rake here, of course, if you call, so you want to be selective and sort of make up for having to pay a lot of rake by entering the pot with a strong hand and therefore having a better chance to take down the pot post-flop. Also, of course, if you call, there's always the chance someone squeezes behind you, and that's obviously not a great scenario. Lastly, let's look at some double-suited rundowns that do have an ace. Now, this is an interesting group. You can see cold calling 17% of the time. This hand is this range of hands, this group basically, category double-suited rundowns that have an ace, is a complete mix between folding some, calling some, and 3-betting some. We're obviously 3-betting the strongest ones with the best connectivity and the most highs cards. We're cold calling sort of the ones that are a little bit in between, like these are a little bit more disconnected and don't do as great in 3-bet pots, or they just lack high cards or connectivity, but they are somewhat strong enough to enter the pot and not fold. But we're also folding quite a bit of this group of hands. Especially if you have like a deuce, a 3, or a 4 in your hand, like the likelihood of 3-betting goes down quite a bit. So hands like ace, king, 10, deuce is a fine hand to call here, MP versus early position. Also ace, queen, 5-4 double suited or ace, 6, 5-4 are good hands to call pre-flop instead of 3-betting. Now the bottom hand, some people might 3-bet this one, but generally we want to have a little bit higher side cards. So for example, a hand like ace 9-8-7, ace 10-9-8, like those hands, of course, much better for 3-betting. But this one, with like these very low side cards, are generally not great candidates to come in for the 3-bet here. Okay, that being said, this was part 2 of basic preflop strategy for Pot Limit Omaha, talking about cold calling. Last week in the first episode, we looked into raising first in. Next session, we're going to do another topic again. If you have any questions, take the section in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the video. Give it a thumbs up, please, if you enjoy this video, or also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of me. Okay, have a great day. Good luck at the tables, and I will see you definitely back here soon for another episode here on YouTube. Take care.